Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I drop my kid off at school and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is Thursday, November 15th. Yep. And the snow is drifting down. Very lovely way here in suburban Chicago. I'm enjoying my walk home. Even though I am bundled up, I generally like to wait until December to put on my big winter coat, but I've broken it out because it is darn chilly, and the jacket that I would have worn is at the tailor's getting the zipper repaired. So there we are. That's what's going on with me and the weather. So I did record an episode earlier this week, but I decided it was garbage, and so I've thrown it away. And so today I'm doing my update of what's on the table, so sort of what I've been playing in the first half of the month here. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of the podcast, especially as we go into the holiday season and the next year. So, to start with what I've been playing. It's been a relatively slow first half of the month, or I've reported on most of what I've played. You know, probably the highlight of the last couple of weeks is Australia, but we talked about that already, so not much sense going there. I've made a little bit of progress on my top of the stack. I played one of those games. I'll talk about that at the end of the month. I would say the highlight, and I'm continuing to play games on BoardGame Arena and PUaD. If you are interested in playing games in either of those places, drop me a line. I'm enjoying that. Right now I'm in 2 games of Dungeon Pets. I don't really know how I did that. I tried to just join one, but somehow I'm in 2, which is annoying because that's one of those games that I find just complicated enough that if I'm playing 2 of them, I get confused. That definitely happened to me playing Terra Mystica last week. I made a critical blunder in my game against my daughter. I lost by 11 points. I think I would have lost by about 6, except I made a move thinking I was her, because in the other game of Terra Mystica I'm playing, I was the color she is. So not my favorite moment, but still having fun all around, enjoying some of the other games. Playing Takedo with the people from the Forgot My Dice podcast and other fans of that show. So, enjoying myself. Yes, good times. And I'm really enjoying Eminent Domain, even though I'm terrible at it. I'm discovering I just am not good at the rhythm of the game, but I'm really enjoying it. So, if you are interested in playing something with me on BoardGame Arena or PUaD, let me know. I do have an account on PUaD as well, but I don't play games there much, and I haven't been checking it because the interface feels weird to me, and checking 2 board game sites every day is not too bad. I feel like checking 3 will get out of control, so that's where I am with that. Let's see. Okay, so the main highlight of the gameplay thus far this month has been Epic Resort. Now, Epic Resort is a game I've had for a long time. It was one of the first Kickstarters I backed. It was created by Ben Harkins, who also did the excellent Legacy Gears of Time, which is not a Legacy game. I would say the unfortunately titled Legacy Gears of Time. And he's the owner and proprietor of Floodgate Games, who have most recently made a big splash with Sagrada and had a successful Kickstarter with Bad Maps, which I looked at but decided ultimately not to back. They also published Vault Wars, which I enjoy quite a bit. That one's definitely in my I need to get that game out again category. That one maybe suffers from the small box syndrome, which is something I may talk about later, or I may push to another episode. We'll see. But Epic Resort. So Epic Resort is I guess you'd call it a deck builder. I wouldn't call it a deck builder. I'd call it sort of deck management. In part because you don't grow your deck. You shrink it, but you don't grow it. So if I was going to draw lines between these things, I would say a deck builder is a game where you add into your deck. You start with a deck, and maybe you take some cards out, but you definitely add to the deck. Arctic Scavengers is a favorite of mine. Marvel Legendary is a deck builder. These are games where you're building a deck. A deck management game is one where you change your deck, but you don't add to it. I don't know that I've played very many games like that. I don't know if I've played any other ones, actually. Well, Epic Resort is interesting that way. So you start with 13 cards. You're going to draw 5 every turn. So your deck already, size-wise, you're not quite getting every card every 2 turns. You're getting it every 2 to 3, which is an interesting dynamic there. And you have a couple different... so it's a worker placement game, and the theme is fun. You are running a resort in a fantasy land. So a place where there are heroes and monsters, and they want to go to theme parks too. So you're running a resort, and you start with 2 attractions, a tiki hut and a... I don't remember what the other attraction is, like a food stand, I think. And then as it goes along, you can add other things. You can add a roller coaster, you can add a hiking trail, there's a bunch of things you could add that would be like something you'd find at a Caribbean resort. And as you go along, there's a dock full of people that show up each round that you can recruit to your resort, and they pay you money to stay at your resort. However, there are also heroes, like a paladin, a rogue, a hunter, a priest, heroes like in a D&D game, who are looking for a vacation. So they come to your island also looking for a vacation, and you can recruit them as well. And for each attraction, you can have a certain number of tourists, usually between like 4 and 8, depending how advanced your attraction is. And you can have 1 hero, and the hero is separate from the tourists, but they relax in a different way, and they'll score points if you let them relax long enough, they score points. Each round, their relaxation meter goes up 1, and if it gets all the way to the top, then you score them, and they're worth points at the end of the game. It's a fairly tight game point-wise. I think my very best game was one of the last ones I played with Finn, and I got in the low 40s for points, and that is definitely my highest score ever. The most points you could score from your attractions would be 2, 4, 6 plus 9 plus 12. So 12 plus 12, 20, 26, 28. It's like 28 points from your attractions, I think, is the most you could possibly score, and I got pretty close to that. And then you score points for the heroes that get fully rested at your location. So that's kind of the engine of it. You attract people and heroes using flair, which is generated by having your resort be empty. And then the more full your resort is with tourists, the more money you make, which you can use to buy better attractions, hire better workers, and hire better workers and attractions. So you're kind of alternating between this emptiness, which you use to attract more people and heroes, and the fullness, which gets you money and lets you upgrade your resort. Kind of going back and forth between the two. The challenge of the game lies in the fact that whenever you're refilling the dock each round, the new people who are coming into the island the next round, some of the cards in there are monsters. And the monsters are, it's a fantasy world, so there's dragons and pixies and witches and pirates and, fantasy monsters who show up and mess around with your attractions. Now, if there are tourists at your attractions, they kill the tourists in some or large numbers. If there are not tourists around, that's much worse because they burn your attractions. And your attractions are relatively fragile. They can usually survive 1 attack, but not 2. And so, if your attraction gets burned, it's a really hard part of the score, particularly because the way the attractions work is you have 3 spots for your attractions, and you build one on top of the other. And you get to keep the points from building the previous attraction. So if you have a level 2 attraction or a level 1 attraction worth 2 points, and then you build a level 2 attraction on top of it, which is worth 3 more points, you now have a space that's worth 5. But if the pirates show up and you didn't have anybody there, they burn down your attraction. They burn it all the way back down to nothing, and you lose all 5 points. So it's a big swing if you screw up and let your attractions get destroyed by monsters. However, you have a couple ways to fight that. One, you have these heroes who can stand in the way of the monsters and keep the attractions from getting burned. Or you can also use these cards. You have 3 cards in your deck called Lazy Peon. And the Lazy Peon is one of your 4 kinds of staff members, 3 kinds of staff members. And all they do is stop the monsters. But you do that by throwing the Lazy Peon to the monster. And then the Lazy Peon is removed from your deck, but the monster doesn't attack your resort. So you get 3 of those to use during the game. And of course you have to have them in hand when the monsters attack. But generally that's enough to save you if you find that a monster is attacking exhibit or an attraction and there's no people there. As often as not, you have a Lazy Peon to throw to them. Or if you're careful, you can easily get through the game without losing too many resorts. The original version of the game was harsher. There were some cards that resulted in second attacks. That has been removed. So that part's better. So that's the basic game. So I didn't talk about attracting better staff. This is the deck management part. So you have characters that are called apprentices, and these are basic workers. Oh, so I also didn't explain what you do with the cards. So you have your workers, your 5 cards, and you can do 2 things with them. Some of them you can discard to get a bonus, and some of them can work in the attractions, and some of them do both. So like, there's the street performer can't work. Well, okay, so some of them you can discard to get a bonus, like the street performer you can discard to get 1 extra attraction point that will pull, flair they call it, that will pull people to your exhibits. Or you can assign, like your apprentices, they have 1 work power. You can assign them to one of the attractions where they can staff it. And the thing is, the way it works is if you have a bunch of people at your attraction and you fully staff it, then all the people stay. If you don't fully staff it, for each unstaffed position at the attraction, 1 person leaves. So a big part of the game is deciding which workers to buy, because they let you focus your work. For instance, there's a guy called the mixologist who offers 2 extra work points at a location that's got a bar. So some of the locations will have a little bar icon that's a bar, tiki bar or something. If you have a mixologist, when you draw him, you can play him at the bar and he fully staffs it by himself. Whereas without him, you'd need like 3 apprentices to staff it. The way you get the mixologist is you train an apprentice to be one. So on your turn, you might have the $4 it costs, or the 4 gold it costs to hire the mixologist, and you have an apprentice in hand, and you remove the apprentice from your deck and take the mixologist into your deck. This is what makes a deck management, not deck building, is that your deck stays the same size. Once you start discarding lazy peons, your deck size goes down to 10, but otherwise your deck is going to stay 10 cards. It's just you upgrade the cards so they're better, rather than keeping the card that you used to buy the character like you would in many deck builders. So Epic Resort is fun. It's slow. I would say the main problem with it is it runs a little slow, and we've house ruled a couple things to make it a little more engaging. We also have the Villains expansion, which adds quite a bit to it, and I would recommend it if you get a chance to play. Well worth a play, very enjoyable. Occasionally I'll see this on deep discount from like Miniature Market. I would say it's worth picking up at $15 or $20. So, well, thanks for listening. I guess I'll do a state of the podcast commentary next time. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.